All right, there we go, Susan Michelle. This mic is all yours. Ooh.
She said, "Hold on, I'm going to the bathroom." I said,
Oh, okay.
"Okay." So,
That happened to me today.
what happened? Yeah, she was there a second ago.
I was like, I
Anyway,
was
how are
like,
you, Lynn? Yeah, do you have a minute?
yeah, yeah, here.
You ever hear of Rob Schwartz? I would love him to be a guest speaker. He spoke with John Mundy, in fact, on Sundays. In fact, Susan just told me about that. We've taken his workshop. Anyway, I'm a friend of his, and he's very, very well respected. If you Google him, you'll see a lot about him. I'd love him
Okay.
to come and speak. He said he would.
Oh,
So.
well, if he said he would, then I'll definitely get a hold of him. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
so
you.
you tell us when it would be good, so I can give him some dates or when it would, he's a great speaker. You can listen to him, Rob Schwartz. Just go on YouTube and just put his name. You'll see a lot of, okay?
Yeah, okay. Thank you
Okay,
so much. All right, Susan Michelle and Myrna, hey, this mic is all yours, ladies.
great, great.
Mhm.
Hi. Hey, Susan.
Hi, Myrna. It's great to be here as always. This is Susan Michel in Western Massachusetts. I am the author of Surrender to Joy From Suicide to Serenity. It is based on the transformational truth of A Course in Miracles, which we are here to talk about, which is one, not the only, but it's one clear path to peace, love, joy, and happiness. I'm looking at Regis. He has a little
Yeah.
picture in his square,
There,
and
yeah.
it's
And
so
it's so
beautiful. It
beautiful.
says,
It says
God's
God
will for you is
is
perfect happiness. And
yes.
there's a picture of a beautiful blonde little girl playing in the field. So beautiful. I love that. God's will for you is perfect happiness. So when I am at peace, I am more connected and aligned with God, which is my true self. And Myrna is here with me today. Myrna, my good friend, whom I love, is the author of Private Lessons with Jesus. It is from A Course in Miracles, and she took a year and did the subject of the lesson in A Course in Miracles each day, and then downloaded her own channeling from Jesus Christ, which is so amazingly beautiful. How are you today, Myrna?
Hi. Wow, you gave it a better description than I could. That's I love that the way you described it. Downloaded from Jesus. Yeah. Yes, you too, Susan. I love your book as well. I mean, your book gives so much great information and it brings the Course in Miracles principles into it. And you tell it's an autobiography and you tell about how your experiences and how the Course in Miracles intertwined with those experiences. You kind of brought that together using experiences and how the Course in Miracles related. And so,
Thank you.
it all helps. It really all works. The more we share, I think the more we gain from it. Like the Course in Miracles says, teaching and learning are the same thing. We learn as we think we're teaching, so we're learning as well, right?
Look at this square. Regis put up in this square. He has
Oh
my book and
yes.
your
Oh,
book
he's a
side by
doll.
side.
Yeah, he
Surrender
always.
to Joy by Susan Michel and Private
Yeah,
Lessons with Jesus by Myrna Scholar, or vice versa. I
yeah,
think
and
your book definitely came first, Myrna.
well, and Regis, if there's anything you want to jump in with, I mean, you ever listen to Regis speak? I sometimes listen to Regis whenever I can before I start my own talk with Dove. And I have to tell you, he puts this calm feeling into me. I thought that Regis was an ordained minister because that's
I did
exactly,
too,
yes,
actually. I was
he's,
talking about a story that I got from Regis, and I called him a reverend. Yes,
yes, yes,
yes,
yes, yes.
that's
It
beautiful.
does because whatever he says just is all truth. It just comes out, in the form of truth. That's the way it is.
We're
And
all here, I think, to remind each other of how beautiful
yeah.
we are. Like when I see the beauty in you, I can feel the beauty in me.
Mhm.
I mean, there's so many, well, thank goodness for A Course in Miracles. And there's so many great interpreters of A Course in Miracles. But the more we can connect to that peace, love, joy, and happiness, the more we are able to do God's work. I have this other little bookmark here right in my hand. I don't even know where I got it, but I love what it says. It says, "The peace of God is shining in me now. Let all things shine upon me in that peace, and let me bless them with the light in me." So I guess what's coming up for me lately is that I really am dependent upon God for everything all the time. Today's lesson is lesson number 36. My holiness envelopes everything I see. It's kind of springboards from yesterday's lesson. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. So my mind and God's mind are the same when I can release my fear, when I can release my ego. And I started the day with this lesson. I went into a 30-minute meditation this morning, starting with this lesson. And what came for me, what came for me is my holiness envelopes everything I see. My holiness envelopes that mirror. My holiness envelopes that wall. My holiness envelopes that rug. But it's God's holiness. It's that's just what came up for me. It's God's holiness channeling itself through me. God's holiness channeling himself through me. And there's something about that that's very empowering. Like I don't have to rely upon my own strength because of myself, I'm nothing. And that's okay. But when I can just surrender to God's strength, when I can do that, there is nothing that I cannot do, but it's not coming from me, it's coming from God. And I'm a part of God. He's not a man sitting up there in the clouds in a throne, the way I thought when I was younger in the church. God is something that I'm a part of. It's like he is the ocean and I am a wave. So I'm a part of him. But when I can surrender to him, there is nothing that I cannot accomplish in this world. So I started, I guess, making a little substitution, but I think I was saying the same thing. Instead of my holiness envelopes everything I see, God's holiness envelopes everything I see. So I'm seeing the world with Christ's vision. It's something about that made the lesson more impactful to me.
Mhm.
What do you think of that, Myrna?
How can you tap the truth? You can only just go, align with it. And that's exactly what I did as you were speaking, aligning myself with what you were saying. Yes, we are a part of God. And because we are so much of us is a part of God, and not all of us, because the ego is completely apart and different, away and apart from God. And yet we're made up of both the ego and spirit. So with us, it's a matter of dividing ourselves whenever we can. And whenever the ego tempts us with unhappiness, with fear, with anything unrelated to truth, and we buy into it, if we can recognize when it's happening and go back into the part of us that we're born of, the part of us that we want to be, we want to stay in that realm of energy, because it's the part of us that keeps us peaceful. And when you think of unbroken peace, that's the only place we'll ever find it. So when I know that my peace is compromised, I know that I'm away from that. And but the very fact is that we've been practicing and studying the Course in Miracles for so long reveals that we are, you know, that we're recognizing it when we lose it, when we're not connected to it. And that's the part that's wonderful, because before the Course in Miracles, I didn't know spirit from ego, from there was no understanding. Now I recognize that when I'm having a thought that's apart from me, a part that does not belong within my thought system, because it's taking my peace away, it's hurting me, really. I'm able to recognize it as an attack upon myself, and do with what I have to get back into the God cycle, the God socket, as you put it. And all of this helps. My holiness envelops everything I see. And if God is in everything I see, then everything that that it means that God is in everything. There's nothing that is not a part of God, because everything has consciousness, and that's all God is, complete consciousness. So God is really, when we think about it, is in all things. I'm just going to close the door because there's noise going on out here.
I like I like everything you said, Myrna. You said that now when something comes up, something that comes up that's taking you away from God, you're more able to identify it, and by identifying it, you're able to release it. I mean, that's the whole goal of A Course in Miracles. A Course in Miracles, and I always remember this, it says it cannot teach us the meaning of love, because that is who and what we are. The only thing that it can do is it can teach us to identify the blocks to love. So when they come up, we can choose to give them over to the Holy Spirit, so the Holy Spirit can help us let them go. We can identify the blocks to love's awareness, so that when they come up, we can make another choice. And we don't have to do it alone. We basically, whenever I'm not at peace, I'm getting better and better at praying and asking the Holy Spirit for help, so I can get back to the truth of who and what I am. And I guess, yeah, I mean, in my morning meditations now, I'm really trying my best to listen to Christ's guidance. And I know that God, or Christ, is something that I'm a part of. So I have access to his guidance at each and every moment, but I can't hear his guidance when there's any fear in me. So my morning meditations really help me to release my fear. And it's amazing how I can just kind of wake up in a little bit of a funk. But then after 30 minutes of meditation, I'm able to kind of turn it around and focus on the peace, love, joy, and happiness. I guess for me, it's about releasing any guilt that I'm holding on to, and kind of focusing on my innocence, connecting to my innocence. I think the most empowering thing we can do is to connect to our innocence, because A Course in Miracles tells us that when there is fear in our mind, when we are hanging on to guilt of any kind, we just can't hear God. It's like a dense energy. It's like a darkness, that's a cloud that's over the sun when we're holding on to guilt, when we're holding on to fear. But when we can release that guilt, when we can release that fear, when we can reconnect to our innocence and realize we never ever did anything wrong, that's when we can hear God speak to us. So it's about, for me, it's about connecting to my innocence. And I've been really focusing too on forgiveness. It's the same thing. Connecting to my innocence and forgiveness, it's the same thing. Because when I hold on to any grievance that I have, I can't feel my innocence. When I see my brother as guilty, I see myself as guilty. So when I can start forgiving people that I have resentments towards, then I can get closer and closer to God. Then I can get closer and closer to heaven. So I continue in the mornings, to think about anyone that I might not have forgiven, and I send them love. I see the body that they're inhabiting in this lifetime. I mean, that's all they're doing. They're inhabiting a body in this lifetime, but I see that body, and I hug them. I hug them. So I realize I'm not forgiving for them, although they might benefit, I don't know, but I'm forgiving for me. I'm the one that really benefits by fully forgiving my brothers. That's what Bill Thetford, the co-scribe of A Course in Miracles, spent the last part of his life doing. And A Course in Miracles says that forgiveness is not necessary in heaven. God does not need to forgive us because he has never condemned us. We are the ones that need the forgiveness, because most of us here in this earthly plane, in this earthly classroom, have condemned many people. That's just, I guess, part of our humanity, part of our egoic thought system. That's why forgiveness is such a necessary learning tool while we're here on earth. And forgiveness is so much greater than what I learned that it was while I was growing up in the Lutheran church. In the Lutheran church, they taught me that as a good Christian, I need to forgive my brother, even though they were bad. If I can forgive them, then I am better off. That's going to help me get into heaven a little bit faster, but it always came from a place of superiority. A Course in Miracles is telling us, no, we don't forgive because we're going to score brownie points and get into heaven. We forgive because what we're seeing, the guilt that we're seeing, is an illusion. We forgive because the resentment that we're hanging on to just isn't true. It's a lie. So we're forgiving so we can align ourselves with God consciousness. We're forgiving because we're clearing our channel. We're forgiving so we can align ourselves with source energy. We're forgiving because the grievance that we're hanging on to is not real. So it's a much deeper way of looking at forgiveness in A Course in Miracles, in my opinion, to compare it to the forgiveness I learned as a child in the church. What do you think about forgiveness, Myrna? I know you grew up in a Jewish household. Is that so? Where you're
Yeah. I never really was taught that I needed to forgive. I don't know whether it would, but I never really considered myself very religious, even as a Jewish person growing up. Yeah, I went to temple when I had to go. Did I like it? No, I didn't. First of all, most of the sessions were conducted in Hebrew, which I didn't understand anyway. Then I discovered, as I grew older, making my own choices, preferring. I found going to temple was nice because it related to my Jewish heritage, because that's what I always found that I wanted to stay with. So I was able to find different synagogues where I could understand the rabbi, what he was saying, and to find a rabbi that whose sermon you really enjoy. And there was one particular rabbi that I really enjoyed, Rabbi Silver, actually. I used to go to temple in my adult years during the high holy days, and I liked his sermon because it spoke the truth. It spoke in terms of what I could understand. And yes, forgiveness is a part of it, because on the whole high, on the high holy days, Yom Kippur, and Rosh Hashanah, tells you that we have been forgiven. We've been forgiven for our sins. Let's pray. Let's now atone for our sins, and that you've been forgiven. And so their forgiveness is a very important part of the Jewish teaching. As a child, I didn't relate to that because I didn't understand it. And the Course in Miracles brought, of course, the cornerstone of A Course in Miracles is all about forgiveness. You and I discussed it earlier a little bit. We touched on it. And I said to you, well, how do we really know when we've really forgiven? How do I know I've really forgiven somebody?
Hmm.
And that's really because just to forgive, like you say, just to score brownie points to get into heaven, is not the answer. It's having to deal with it on a level that we really truly do forgive, truly forgive. And just to say I forgive, sometimes we forgive thinking we're being magnanimous. We're forgiving somebody their sin because we are, of a higher plane, so here it's all about superiority, but that's not what it's about either. So I think by forgiving, what happens is true forgiveness. When you see that you're at peace with somebody, yeah, then you've forgiven them. When you're at peace with them, you don't necessarily have to bring them, I believe, into your life, and the person that, you can just sort of let them go, let the person go with, good wishes, goodwill, and not hold anything inside that causes all the damage, because then it becomes an attack. When we truly are holding on to a grievance, it's an attack to ourselves. We're not attacking the other person, we're holding on to something inwardly. So it's an attack upon ourselves. And so and now I'm aware of when I attack myself, because I'll say to Jesus, I just attacked myself, right? I just realized it. And of course I get his agreement.
Attacking ourselves is just as bad as attacking someone else, and attacking someone else is just as bad as attacking ourselves. I mean, when we project anger outward, it boomerangs back and hits us in the head, metaphorically. When we internalize anger, it turns into disease. That's what I believe. So, attacking someone else is the same as attacking ourselves. It's a matter of identifying it, I think, and just kind of owning it. I always use that word own. I want to know if you can own this pain, yours and mine, without trying to hide it or fade it or fix it. That's a line from a poem. How do you own it? But just kind of sit with it and then give it to the Holy Spirit so he can help us see that it has no power over us. I think that's how we can release, our fear. Speaking about forgiveness, what you made me think of, Myrna, is I had this one uh, disagreement, argument, conflict, major conflict with a nurse at the nursing home where I work. I would say probably 8 months ago, approximately, but it was a real huge conflict, like really bad. I don't remember the details about it, but for some reason, I think I thought she was a CNA and not a nurse. A CNA doesn't have as much education as a nurse. And so, because I thought she was a certified nursing assistant instead of an actual nurse, she got offended. And then her attitude triggered me. And then we went back and forth, and it was really not good. I mean, I was so upset by this disagreement 8 months ago that I remember I was shaking, I was trembling. I mean, that's how much it affected me. You know, as a Course in Miracles student, I know there is no one outside of me. As a Course in Miracles student, I knew that something of myself had not yet been healed. As a Course in Miracles student, I knew that it wasn't about her. It was me, you know, that needed this lesson for whatever the reason. I did bring it into the Course in Miracles Pal Talk, and I got advice from a few people, and I really went through the forgiveness process as good as I could. I tried so hard to forgive this particular nurse. And what started happening immediately after our argument is we started running into each other in the nursing home, and we did show respect for each other. You know, she showed respect for me, I showed respect for her, and I could see that my forgiveness efforts were working. And then what happened was she disappeared from the nursing home. So I didn't see her for about 7 or 8 months. She just disappeared. And then I saw her for the first time yesterday. She came into my room, the activities room, and I looked at her and I had no animosity at all. I just saw this really pretty woman, and she started talking to some of the residents, and I commented that I hadn't seen her in a while, and she told me she had been working at the hospital, but it was like the huge blowout fight that we had, it was almost like it never happened. She was just nice as pie to me, and I was nice as pie to her. And I think that sometimes when another person triggers you and you go through the healing that's necessary, you can get to a point where it just disappears. It's amazing how that works. And it's almost like a closer connection develops after the forgiveness, after the healing, you know, because it's something in me that was released. So I feel more closely connected to myself, and I felt more closely connected to her. I mean, we're not friends, we don't hang out outside of the nursing home, but we both kind of knew that we had this fight, but we both knew that it didn't really matter, because if it's not love, it's not real. Has that ever happened to you, Myrna, that you had like a disagreement with somebody, and then after the healing, you could feel the love on the other side of the fear?
Yes, of course. I've had but don't forget, it's all about us. It's not about
Mm-hmm.
them, it's about us. Now,
Mm-hmm.
you know, embrace the idea that you wanted to feel, you wanted to forgive. You know how important forgiveness is. So to hold on to a grievance certainly was not the answer. But because you forgave her, that she sensed that. It's
Mm.
because our minds are all joined. There are no private thoughts. So if you still had that feeling about animosity, even if you tried to hide it, she would sense it. And that would come between you. But because you are a forgiving person, you work on that, recognizing it's all a dream anyway, certainly what we conjure up in our mind, and the things that we get involved in, nonsense that we get involved in, it makes no sense anyway. So, we look at it, it's a dream. It's not real anyway. So that feeling that you were able to convey to her, obviously connected. So I look at it that way. I know that if I and I was always a person who never really held on to a grudge. I think my difficulty was that I would react. I would lash out quickly. If I felt insulted, I would lash out. I would react. I wouldn't hold back my reactions. I've learned not to do that, and that's was so much a part of me. That was a part of myself to let go of. It was a hard part to relinquish. So now I'll hold myself back. But even then, in those days when I did react to something much too quickly, and certainly uh, not, it certainly was something that I felt that wasn't really coming from me. I felt it was a reaction that I couldn't control. But what I'm trying to, I guess, maybe explain here is that it doesn't matter for me. I was always able to forgive easily, even when I felt that, the fact that I would lash out, I could forget about it a day later. So I always found that that always worked, because I could see somebody that I might have had a confrontation with, an altercation with, and then see that person a day later, because I'm fond easy to forgive. I found that that was obvious to me early on. And the Course in Miracles, of course, recognizes and justifies that in so many ways by saying that to forgive, it has to come, from the truth of not feeling the grievance anymore, not feeling it, letting go of it. I guess some are harder to let go of than others, because now we're putting, we're placing, levels on, I can forgive this, but I can't forgive that. So certain things are harder to forgive than others, but everything needs to be forgiven no matter what. And that's what the true meaning of forgiveness is just to recognize that you don't hold on to it, let it go, find a way to let it go.
An old expression was, I can forgive, but I will never forget. So someone who forgives but chooses not to forget because he or she needs to protect himself against further injury. I mean, that would be the reason not to forget, so it doesn't happen again. A Course in Miracles is saying when you truly forgive, you actually erase it. When you truly forgive, you forget that it ever happened in the first place. And when we can truly let it go, we no longer have that pain point in our system. So we are not going to attract a similar event in the future. So when we can forgive and forget that it ever happened, then our lesson has been learned, and we will not need to attract that similar negative energy pattern to us, because we've let it go. All forgiveness is self-forgiveness, because God has but one son, and we are all part of that sonship. So when we forgive the other person, we're forgiving the part of ourself that has not yet been fully healed. We're forgiving the part of ourself that was triggered. And it says right here that Forgiveness recognizes, and this is from A Course in Miracles workbook, forgiveness, I believe it's from A Course in Miracles. I believe it's from the workbook. Forgiveness recognizes what you thought your brother did to you has not occurred. It does not pardon sins and make them real. It sees there was no sin. And in that view are all your sins forgiven. What is sin except a false idea about God's Son? Forgiveness merely sees its falsity and therefore lets it go. What then is free to take its place is now the will with a capital W of God. So when we can truly forgive our brothers, we can align ourselves with our innocence. I've been saying a lot to myself lately. I embody the essence of innocence. So when we can truly forgive our brothers, we're aligning ourselves with the essence of innocence, and we are now able to hear God's voice. Because when we're holding on to unforgiveness or we're holding on to resentments, that's guilt. And again, guilt is like a cloud that's covering the sun. I can't hear God talk to me when I'm holding on to guilt and resentments and unforgiveness. But when I can forgive, then I can align myself with source energy and hear what he is telling me. So and it's also it's we have free choice while we're in this earthly classroom. So we can choose to forgive or not to forgive. Sometimes I wish I didn't have so much free choice. I wish that the God would just make the decisions for me, and I wouldn't have the choice to make them myself. It would be so much easier that way. But I mean, that's what we have. This is an earthly classroom, and we have free will. We have free choices down here. And at each and every moment, I can choose to forgive or to hang on to my grievance. I can choose to love or to connect with my ego. And everybody has those choices. I mean, A Course in Miracles says that we're all on our way back to heaven, but some of us will get there sooner than others. And the ones that get there sooner are helping the ones that are not yet back in heaven yet. Before our talk today, Myrna, I was listening to Course in Miracles on Audible, and we were talking about the separation. So before the separation, forgiveness was not needed because we were at one with God. And then the separation occurred. And then after the separation occurred and we started feeling all these turbulent emotions, then we started having like choices. Then everything got more complicated. And what that reminded me of too, the separation, I want to hear what you know about that, because you know a lot about that and you're teaching me about that. But it reminds me of the Wizard of Oz. I mean, a Wizard of Oz is such a perfect analogy to Course in Miracles when you look at it in a certain way. Dorothy was at home with Auntie Em, where she had all the love that she desired, but she was a little bored. She was a little restless, and she saw her boredom being quelled on the other side of the rainbow. She saw her peace, love, joy, and happiness on the other side of the rainbow, somewhere else than where she was. So she ends up, going to the land of Oz. And soon as she got to the land of Oz, the only thing she wanted to do is get back home. And that's very similar to what's happening to us, I think. We had everything that we wanted in terms of the love, but then we got a little restless. And then, as you said, Myrna, we got a little bored. We wanted to start feeling different feelings and different emotions. So we separated from God. And now we're in this earthly classroom and we're experiencing all this guilt. We're experiencing all this pain. And the only thing that the spiritual seekers are striving for is to get back home to God, where we originally started, so I love that Course in Miracles analogy also. But then another really insightful point is the whole time Dorothy thought she was in the land of Oz, she realized that it was just a bad dream. And all she had to do was click her ruby red slippers together 3 times, and she would automatically wake up and realize that everything that she has been searching for in the external world has been available to her at each and every moment. So that's, again, very similar to what we need to do. We need to remember that nothing is really happening. Even though it seems like there's a lot of chaos, even though it seems like there's a lot of drama, a lot of fear, at any moment that we can just still our mind, we can realize that God is with us right here, right now. He is guiding us, and there is no reason to fear anything at all. When we can just still our mind, we can remember that we never left God. We are part of God right here, right now.
Yeah. And it's always all about forgiveness too, even I like that you bring up the Wizard of Oz, because I always loved the Wizard of Oz and dissecting it, into how, what the message is. And it's so obvious, as you said, she goes into a land that's not that she came into, okay, because she was dissatisfied with her life. She thought that over the rainbow, remember the song she sings at the beginning, somewhere over the rainbow, birds fly over the rainbow, why can't I?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what she desired, and of course she goes over the rainbow and everything looks beautiful until she realized it's not home. As beautiful as everything was, there's a lot of ego in in that beautiful garden. And that's what she picked up along the way. And recognizing that there's no place like home. And we want to go home. We want to go home to the truth of who we are, but we don't have to fly anywhere. We don't have to go back to heaven to experience it. We don't have to die to go back to heaven. Our body, we don't have to say, okay, when I die, everything's going to be wonderful. I won't have to live, the life on this earth that's caused me nothing but pain, and it's all wonderful over there. I just believe that if it's wonderful, it has to be wonderful here. It has to be wonderful within. And that's why the Course in Miracles wants us to obliterate the world, because the world is such a deterrent. And our eyes and our thoughts bring about all the obstacles that keep us from peace. So we can find heaven on earth right where we are, if we just, and I guess people have found it. I can't say I'm there yet, because I still have, I'll wake up in the morning with a feeling sometimes that I'm depressed. I don't know why I feel that way. Maybe it's something I dreamed during the night, but it's this feeling of depression, that's gripping me. And that does happen. I get those feelings. But I reckon, instead of being afraid of them as I used to be, when I used to have those feelings of fear and depression, I would blame somebody. I would blame, it's this, or it's my marriage, or it's this person, or that's what you call owning the pain. What I've come to realize is that, even though my life has changed considerably, the same feelings still come up. What do I do? Blame different people? No, of course not. What I do is realize what it is. Don't hold on to the thought. that's upsetting me, if there is a thought, particular one that's coming to my mind. And that, and I just, it's so much easier starting to find, instead of trying to psychologically evaluate what's happening, just let it go. Learn to let it go with an affirmation, with a better thought, with a feeling of love, with a only bringing that into the person, the side of us that can can pull in the peace that we're seeking, to go to that, as you do it with meditation, which is great. You really do. You wake up in the morning and you recognize the need to meditate, and that gets you into that realm of of peace, which is really wonderful. I don't meditate, but I do it in other ways. I can. I find, actually, I shouldn't say I don't meditate. I find guided meditations are very helpful for me, when I can sit back, close my eyes, and listen to a guided meditation. That works for me. You do it on your own. You do it by the stillness and so forth. If I do that, my mind is going all over the place. But you learn to meditate very well. So you get all that, get all those
I
downloads.
I start with a mantra. Lately, what I've been doing is I've been starting my meditation with the Course in Miracles lesson of the day. So this morning it was my holiness, envelopes. I have a hard time with that word for some reason. Envelopes. Did you say that word,
Envelopes.
Berta?
You asked me about that. Yeah, certain things, I have a hard time with certain words too. Uh, Envelop, not envelope, envelop without an
That's
E.
okay.
It
My
helps.
holiness envelops everything I see. I know what it means. It means
Same as
encompasses.
an envelope.
Yeah, yeah. My holiness encompasses everything I see. My holiness extends onto everything I see. So I start with my holiness envelops everything I see. And then I guess I got to the point where I realized it's not Susan's holiness, it's God's holiness. So God's holiness envelops everything I see through me. And again, that was very impactful. And then I just kind of start focusing on innocence. I start focusing on forgiveness. I start focusing on peace. And it's extremely beautiful. Once I get past, I guess, the first 10 minutes, I meditate for about 30 minutes. Usually the initial is kind of challenging because my mind tends to jump around a little bit. But after I can make it through that first 5-10 minutes, I feel like it's just very, very helpful. And I'm listening for God's voice. And I I guess I really yearn to hear what he is telling me. I'm really searching for the inner answers. I mean, A Course in Miracles tells us that it is a beginning, it's not an ending. What A Course in Miracles is teaching us to do is to connect with our own internal teacher. So after we can release our blocks, after we can release a lot of our fear, we can really hear what our own internal teacher is directing us to do. So A Course in Miracles is bringing us to closer to our inner guidance, which is something that I love about A Course in Miracles. I mean, A Course in Miracles says that it is not the only path to God. It is one clear path to God, but there are many. And A Course in Miracles also doesn't claim to have all the answers. What A Course in Miracles is teaching us to do is listen to our own inner guidance. And I love that about A Course in Miracles, because I've always, I think, on some level, known that. I've known that, the wisdom that I'm seeking is something that I already have access to, but it's just about releasing my fear so I can hear what my true self is telling me. I think I've always known that. um when you were talking, you brought up that line from A Wizard of Oz, and I love that line, and I wrote it down, and I think I'm going to use it in tomorrow's meditation. There's no place like home. That's what Dorothy was saying at the end with the good witch, right? When she was clicking her ruby red slippers 3 times. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. I mean, think of that, saying that now as a Course in Miracles student. I mean, we are already home. It's just a matter of remembering that, and to say to ourselves, there's no place like home is a very powerful statement. There's no place like home, and I am already there. I am home right here, right now. All I need to do is be still and remember that. All I need to do is release my egoic thought system, release my fear, remember how much love is available to me right here, right now. There's no place like home, and I am already there. I mean, just to breathe that in, Myrna, thank you so much. That's such an empowering statement. I love that. And, there's this other quote, don't know where I got it, but I know I put it on a couple of my social media posts. It says, it's a little 4-sentence poem or a 4-sentence philosophy. It says, dance like no one is watching, sing like no one's listening, love like you've never been hurt, live like it's heaven on earth. That's so beautiful. I remembered that when you were talking also, because A Course in Miracles says that when the world ends, I can't remember exactly, but people take it to mean that when the world ends, there's going to be fear. But when the world ends, when the earth as we know it ends, when life as we know it ends, what that will mean is that heaven and earth will come together. So there is no more fear in this world. They will stop to exist as separate states. Heaven and earth will come together, so love will be the prevalent and the only force that we will have to connect to. And again, as Course in Miracles students, that's what we're striving to do. We're striving to we don't have to die to get into heaven. All we need to do is release the egoic thought system. All we need to do is release our fear, and then to live like it's heaven on earth. That's just such a beautiful, empowering way to live. Because the dream that we're living now, before we awaken, it's going to go from a nightmare, to a happy dream. And then the happy dream is going to lead to the awakening, the enlightenment phase. So before we reach enlightenment, before we awaken truly, our dream will change from one of challenges to a happy dream. I was listening to a podcast about that yesterday, actually. It was given by the Foundation of Inner Peace, and they talk about how our dream will change to a happy dream. And that's a step that we will take before we awaken, because, when we awaken, we are going to realize that this whole earthly classroom is nothing more than a dream. It's not real. The Course in Miracles says over and over again, the world is not real. There is no world, and the world is nothing more. The external world that we experience is nothing more than a reflection of our internal belief system. So what we believe in here is being reflected back to us when we're sleeping. And I've been remembering my dreams a lot lately, and also when we're awake. So we're seeing outside of ourselves what we are hanging on to inside of ourselves. So when we can forgive, we can start releasing our darkness and getting closer to our light. And we're all going through the same challenges. I mean, if we were enlightened, we wouldn't have been born into this earthly classroom. At least that's what I believe. We all have the same challenges at each and every moment. We can choose love or fear. And through discipline and through practice, we can choose love more and more often.
Yes, it's exactly right. I love listening to you flow through this so well, because obviously, given the words from the highest self that you possibly could have, and that comes through. And yeah, the way it's forgiveness, we talk about that. I mean, and that is what we're really here to do. Sometimes I think back to my early childhood and I think, well, why was I born into a family with, I mean, things, I think if I don't know, I, I would say that I grew up in this dysfunctional household. But I also realized, and that had a lot to do with my growth, going into my young adulthood and all. I brought it with me. But what I realized is, and we talk about Rob Schwartz, and he's great. He really is. He teaches pre-birth planning, and I mean he's very interesting. I really recommend that if anybody's cares to go into YouTube, put in Rob Schwartz, and he's going to speak with us. I asked him to. Somehow I have connection with him. Anyway, so he made a point that we pick our parents, we choose that. And the reason, I question, well, why would I have chosen that? But as time goes on, I understand more and more why I chose that. It's all about forgiveness. Those were things that I needed to forgive, and that took the work. And if I could forgive that. Okay, those illusions, because they are illusions, they're gone, they're past. To bring them with us, it certainly is of no avail. I mean, it doesn't seem to, work in our favor. So, if we can just forgive it, then we can let it go and really recognize what our purpose is. And I think that's the mission that we came here to learn. We were talking about forgiveness, that is our mission. Because that is the hardest part to reconcile within ourselves. The forgiveness is it's because it's really asking a lot, or so our ego tells us, that to forgive is asking a lot. But when Jesus tells us in A Course in Miracles, it's your only hope, we have to now look at that and see why. And that becomes apparent when we start to forgive.
I love what Rob Schwartz says. I would love to listen to his seminar. have one, at least one of his books that I've been listening to on
Yeah.
Audible.
Oh,
I
yeah.
do believe that, and I found out about him through you, Myrna. I think he's fabulous. He says that we choose our own parents because these are specific lessons that our soul needs to learn. And the lessons always have to do with forgiveness. I think by overcoming our darkness is how we connect to a greater extent to our light. I mean, we don't grow despite our challenges. We grow into our greatest potential because of our challenges. If we didn't have those challenges to overcome, we would never be able to open up to our true power. I believe that, that's how we develop our strength. And I chose in this lifetime father who was very judgmental, who was very critical. So for my lifetime, I've been working on healing those character traits in myself. But I do know on a deep level that the parents that I chose in this lifetime were perfect for me, were perfect for the lessons that my soul needed to learn. I mean, in my book, I wrote under dedication in memory of Ode Sophia Michel, my mother who loved me unconditionally, and Richard Jean Michel, my father who provided the challenges needed to develop inner strength. So, on some level, it's all perfect. It's all perfect. It's all good. And it's all coming together. Thank you so much for being here with me, Myrna. I love you so much. I love our talks. I always learn and I grow.
Love you, Regis.
Yes, I love you. I love you all. I thank you for being here with me today. And as A Course in Miracles says, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. And what that means is the only thing that's real is the love. Thank God for that. And I will now return the microphone to Lynn.
Thank you so much, Susan and